Hey everyone, I just wanted to check in as we finished our first round of the ID step for the timeline assignment. All in all, you did an excellent job, and I really enjoyed reading through all of your entries and your posts. Um, you all did a great job of sticking to topics that are relevant to Unit 2, um, something that doesn't always happen with this assignment. And you all did an excellent job in terms of the formatting, in terms of pasting your information for the timeline assignment into the correct box on Tiki-Taki. There were a few questions about embedding links and images, so I will address those at the end of this video, so stay tuned if that's something you need a little help with. Also, I wanted to mention, and I wrote this on in my feedback to many of you, I always offer the opportunity for revision with the Unit 2 timeline assignment because I realize that this is something that's brand new to most of us, if not all of us. So this time around, we're not only getting used to the assignment expectations, but also the kind of technical use of Tiki-Taki. All right, that said, I have a few notes here that I wanted to make sure that I touch on. Let's see, so in terms of the purpose of the timeline assignment, just to kind of reiterate this and move into talking briefly about historical significance, one of the purposes of this assignment is for you to do the work of a historian, if only in just a very small way, or getting a small glimpse at the kind of work historians do. So historians conduct research so that they can create new interpretations and new knowledge of past events. Again, we talked about some of the reasons for that during Unit 1, but among those can be asking new questions, looking for new perspectives, trying to present the information in new places. So a digital timeline is a place for history that hasn't existed for too long. And so that's, again, what we're doing. And so in your work, as you contribute to the class timeline, you not only need to describe and define your topic that you've chosen for your entry, but you also need to explain its historical significance. And you're going to hear me say that a lot. The reason I use that term, historical significance, is that it's something that history professors at the college level are always trying to get their students to think about in depth and to understand. When we ask you to evaluate the historical significance of something, what we're really asking is for you to explain to us your interpretation about why this particular event, person, theme matters. So another way to think of it is you need to explain the so what and who cares. Publishers and places that I've written for in the past have often asked me to make sure that I'm doing that in my work. So again, that's something that you need to kind of go back and read and decide, have I just listed a few different important points about this topic, or have I explained why those things are important? So that's the difference when I write in your feedback and I say, that you've listed significant things about your topic, but you haven't explained its historical significance. That's what I'm getting at, because you can list a bunch of details that do matter and that are important without explaining why you find these things to be important. So you're kind of giving your overall summary of how this person contributed to, or if you did a person or an event, how it contributed to the overall flow of New Mexico history, the larger story, and why that matters. What can we learn from it? Again, is another way to do that. And so you've noticed this is a pretty open-ended kind of thing. There are a lot of different ways you could approach historical significance. There are some wrong ways to do it, but there isn't necessarily a right way to do it, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's kind of the key things I wanted to say about the assignment itself and how you should approach thinking about what you're writing. The next part of the video is going to go over some of the technical things about using Tiki-Taki. So if you don't have questions about that, you can shut it off now. If you do have questions, please stay on. And here we go. So a couple of the main uh, things that came up. Let me scroll this over here. And let me see if I can find good examples. I'm going to go to these entries here on Coronado and Cortez because they show something interesting as well about. And I told everybody they could sign off when I'm. This is something it's about interpretation. Um, you'll notice that Coronado is placed before Cortez on our timeline. In our reading, we came across Cortez before we came across Coronado because Cortez led the conquest of Tenochtitlan of central Mexico, and then it was Coronado after that from kind of the what was then the outskirts of Mexico and Culiacan launched an expedition to New Mexico in the 1540s. So you'll notice here then that Brianna made the choice of posting her information, her entry about Cortez, under the years during which the conquest of Tenochtitlan took place. So that was the most important historical thing he did. That makes sense. Over here, Marjorie made the decision to use Coronado's birth year for the beginning of, or for the placement of her post. Neither one of these are wrong. But what I'm trying to point out is that you made a decision, whether consciously or not, about how you're going to characterize the chronology of your entries. And again, this isn't wrong, but these are things to think about as you look at the timeline and kind of recognize, oh, that came out in a different order than it did in the book. Why is that the case? And what does this say about the kinds of choices that historians make when they write their narratives about the past? Okay, now as promised, we'll get into the details about how to do these things. Okay, here's the one I was looking for. So you'll notice this one, Antonio de Espejo, Vanessa's post. There's no image showing in this box. And so let's figure out why that's the case. So I'm going to click the admin section. Of course, this is where you all went to post your work. I'm going to click on her entry, Antonio de Espejo. And something that you may have noticed is that you can edit everyone else's stuff. Please don't do that. Only work on your own things. That's one of the reasons I have you also post to Blackboard, is so that I can see what it was that you did. Also, please be very cautious and careful about not writing over other people's placeholders. Make sure that if something's already there with someone else's name on it, you choose something else as we go forward this semester. Looking here then, Antonio de Espejo, and I'll also open up her post here. So you can see she posted the information in the extra info area. She set it up exactly right. But she forgot to add her link to her outside source. And that will show up here. So if I told you that you needed to embed your link to your outside source, I'm just telling you to paste the URL for whatever source you found. Most of you listed those in your Blackboard entries, and paste it in here. I'm just going to choose one of those that popped up for the sake of argument and hit save, just to show you how it works. You, of course, would post your correct URL for your source. Then when you click on Find Out More, it will open your source in a new tab. This was one I used for a timeline that I made about the Guatemalan Revolution. So close that, and I'm going to actually change that back to the way it was, so that when Vanessa gets a chance, she can do her revisions if she'd like to. Again, that's an option. To show you how to do the image. And so this is what most often happens if your image doesn't display correctly. I'm going to copy the URL that was pasted in the source box, and I'm going to open a new tab and go to that URL. All right, and so this was one that came from Wikipedia. I have WikiWand because it just presents Wikipedia in a slightly better way. I'm not sure which image Vanessa wanted to choose because there are a few good options here. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to click on this one. This one opens larger. In order to get the image itself, you can't just paste the URL in the browser bar. You have to right-click or control-click if you're on a Mac like me, the actual image itself, and then choose copy image address. The wording on that might be a little different on a PC, I don't know, but whatever, copying the image URL or image address. Then I'm going to go back to our timeline in the other tab, and I'm going to paste that different address in and hit save. And there we go. So that's, again, how you do that. I will revert this to what it was before to give Vanessa the chance to revise and update this. So you can do any revisions that you would like based on my feedback. Please ask me questions about the feedback that I provided you on the Unit 2 timeline. If you have them, happy to keep talking about these things with you. And I am very excited that our timeline is off to such a great start.